Let me testify. This gon' be the year that I break every cycle. Let me testify, right hand on the Bible. I was tripping, chasing every...
We are 16 episodes in, 4 months of saying yes. Baby, when we started this, we knew it mattered, but we didn't fully know how it would land. We didn't expect the messages, the texts, the calls, I was just listening to your podcast and what? Women coming to us and saying, that episode felt like you were talking directly to me. Or you said something I've never been able to put into words before. The comments that I had to pause because it was just a little too real. That's when it hit us. This is not content. It is connection. It is confirmation. This is God meeting women right where they are. And it has had such an impact out there, but it's also been transformational for us in here. We have cried in these episodes. We've called each other out and called each other in. We've had to sit with our own words after we said them. And it has been a beautiful blend of fun, and not surface level fun, but the kind that comes from growth, from honesty, from doing work that actually seems like it's doing something, from work that actually means something to people. So today we are switching things up and doing it a little different. This episode is a reflection of the first part of this journey. It's a compilation of moments from episodes 1 through 8, moments that shifted us, moments that we knew shifted you. So as you listen, don't just hear it as a recap. Listen for what still speaks to you and what you still need work in. Welcome to the Yes Work Podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Dr. Blair.
I am Dr. DQ.
And I'm Lady D. Okay, so this first clip takes us back to the beginning when we were naming the things that pushed us to start the Yes Work podcast in the very first place. All right, let's listen in to episode 1. The Yes Work begins.
So my core pillar is obedience. Y'all, the signs have been there concerning my professional path and my professional journey. Multiple times in multiple ways, people were speaking over me and it felt very trivial. Like, oh, anybody could do it. And I realized that I needed clarity. I was praying for clarity and I was praying for trust, but I had it the whole time. I just was not being obedient because I didn't believe that entrepreneurship was my path.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, other people are entrepreneurs, not me. And so it was a little bit of disbelief. And it reduced down to obedience. I was not being obedient. So my faith is shifting from theoretical to being in action by being. So that's the core pillar that I'm contributing to this work.
And I love that obedience. And listen, so my word was transformation. The season that I'm in is transformation. And I actually was just telling these ladies, like even a day or so before, like my husband and I had just sat down and talked about transformation, renewing of the mind, renewing of our spirit. And I have actively been seeking a change in my life. And I don't know about you all that's listening, but I have been that woman that has been that stop, not disciplined, not carrying it on and saying like, I'm going to pray today. I'm going to do my devotion. And then something else happens, right? There's something else. There's competing priorities. And so I decided to say yes. I needed to renew my mind. I needed to be disciplined. I had to make a transformation. It's time for a transformation. And it's awesome because I literally being stretched. Like this retreat is literally stretching me and refining me as a woman of faith. And I am saying yes because I'm ready to walk in it.
That's the type of stretch marks that you want, right?
Oh,
You need to put no cocoa butter on that. I want to show that I'm being stretched.
Yeah, that's real.
So my pillar is activation. I am actively pursuing God. I am running after him. He don't have to chase me no more. I've realized that I needed to put effort in. I'm in this space where I'm declaring that I love the Lord. I'm challenging myself to say that in spaces that feel a bit scary and risky. I declare it in front of an office of white men that God shows me my purpose. I live for him. I work to glorify him. I pray to him before creating content, all these things. And that is so scary when you're working in the field that you have to be aware of your privilege. You have to be aware of being inclusive, etc. And I said, no, let me go ahead and declare this thing so they know.
Yes.
That this is what, so I have to walk the talk. I need to activate my gifts. I need to use them the way that he has called me to use them and not the way that I think I'm supposed to use them.
Come on.
So this is about activation.
In this next moment, we started to unpack something deeper, what it looks like to be successful, but still feel unsettled. Okay, so let's tune in. Episode 2, The Hustle That Hurts.
And I just want to add to that because my recent prayers have been around responsibility fatigue and casting that out and rebuking it, because God said his yoke is easy. Weariness, right? When we're getting tired and when we're getting fatigued, that's a sign to us. It's not failure. That's a sign like, I need to realign with God. I'm off track. This is light work. Y'all, the words that we use, I'm telling you, it has so much significance and power if you just remember it. In the midst of you saying like, man, I'm so frustrated with this work and I got to do this and I'm lifting this up. This is light work. And if it don't feel light, then let me go back to this word, to this scripture. Let me sit in prayer. Let me fast, because this supposed to, let me tell you, I'm over here lifting weights and it don't even feel heavy.
Okay.
That's the goal.
Yes. I feel
She's going to
seen.
speak to us.
Okay, right. I feel seen. Yes,
We're here.
always.
You know, I just wanted to speak to that community piece because and put in the comments, y'all, if you want us to do a podcast, an episode around church hurt, because we brought that up
Oh, we did.
at our retreat. And some people, and I know people close and personal to me, right, where they're like, oh, that's too far away. You travel how far for church? And a church alive is worth the drive. There is power. Baby, I drive 13 minutes with no traffic. Come on. Because again, a church alive, listen, I give a plug.
Mine is 30
Covenant
minutes
Church
too.
International. But there is power in walking into the sanctuary. There is power in activating and figuring out what your spiritual gifts are so you can then serve that community. Some of us have really been hurt and personally hurt, right, in the church, as well as like just feeling betrayal by the pastor or whomever. And that has impacted us getting in the community. The word says that we are supposed to get in the community. We are supposed to be in the home, in the church. So, yeah, put in the comments if you want us to, because we could listen, I'm ready to talk
But then,
about
so
it.
tell me about, we got a lot of people that go to Bedside Baptist.
Okay. Baby.
Come on now.
Yes. Ugh. So I know that, so that's the piece, right? And I also think about me personally. I have found myself staying busy so I wouldn't necessarily have to listen. I will be overworking myself to avoid those hard spiritual conversations, right? And I think that's how I got to this space of recognizing and really calling into fruition that light work. If it is feeling like a burden, if it feels like fatigue as far as the responsibilities that God has given me, or I think that he has given me, then I need to get back. I need to get grounded. I need to get back in the word. And so those are the personal pieces for me that really hit and hopefully can speak to some of those listeners out there right now as well, as far as what that may look like and how it's manifesting for them.
Absolutely. And just thinking about having those accomplishments and still being unsure. I don't even know if I told y'all. So again, okay, March 2025, I successfully defended my dissertation. Why April was I looking at a certification program?
I told her about herself too, y'all.
Oh, I did tell you about it.
Yeah, no, I told you about it.
It came up. Oh, I did.
Because I did the same thing after I got my degree. I said, what else can I?
Yes. And so then I realized like I'm keeping myself in this learner role and I'm rarely stepping on stage to perform and really show people what I'm capable of. And now there's nothing wrong with learning, but at some point, I got to shift on the spectrum between learner and teacher, no pun intended. Okay. But in doing that and shifting more to displaying my skill set and being confident, okay, I'm taking a step towards fulfilling my purpose. And then I'll feel like I'm functioning in my calling. So That is kind of the chord that was struck for me personally.
Beautiful. All right, y'all, let's jump into episode 4. This is when we started talking about independence and when it stops working. We titled this, God, I Got It. Until I don't. This next one, it just hit a nerve for a lot of people because we had to ask ourselves, is it us being independent? Is it strength? Or is it really protection? So listen to this next clip. Hope you vibe with it.
And honestly, I think over the time, that independence really quietly turned into the identity of being the strong one, okay? The reliable one, the one
Wait.
who has to figure it out. And when that happens, you don't really notice how much you're carrying because it just feels like that is who you are now. The weight, you're carrying all the weight. The weight has now stabilized. Like this is who I am. And it really took me well into my adulthood to figure that out. That I personally have a control problem. uh, and I wanted to be responsible. I wanted to be the strong friend, right? And I know ladies right now listening, how many of us, I know there's us right here. We're the strong friend.
Yeah.
And I know, and I love it when I see those posts that remind me, like, check on your strong friend because you just assume that they have it all together. And honey, you out here saying you independent and you got it all figured out, and it looks like you do. And but you really do, you need, again, I feel like I've been always talking about community. You need that community, you need that support, you need him, and
Yeah.
him is God.
Okay, clarify for the
Yeah,
people.
him is God.
Because somebody's sitting right next to their man and they say, I need him. That's not who we talking about.
Need
Girl.
him, right? So ladies, I mean, I know I'm not the only strong friend here, so
No.
Dr. DQ, Dr. Blair, tell me, well, how does that independence show up for you too?
Help. I have a story that shows how it showed up and how it helps me to reflect on how foolish it can be to try to be completely independent and to not seek help and resources. My silly self, my husband was out of town for a weekend and I wanted to show my independence, my strength with a K. So I said, okay, I've been asking him to paint for me and to do all these things. He gone. I said, let me show him how I can take care of these 2 kids. I'm painting baseboards. I'm over here
Girl, what?
painting doors, hallways. It's looking crisp and clean up in here.
Okay. Side
He
hustle.
walked through that door, y'all. Didn't notice a thing.
Ooh,
I'm over here. You know how you standing looking like Vanna White. I'm over here.
you got me on that. Oh,
He ain't noticed not a thing. He didn't say, oh, it looks brighter in here. My back hurting, my body sore. I didn't get not one response that I thought I was going to get. I spent all of that time just trying to show what I can do, how I can be independent, and I'm looking foolish.
yeah.
I talked to him just about this the other day, and he was like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I said, I know. I know. I
Oh,
know you don't know.
you gotta love those husbands.
We do. We do. But look at how we will literally hurt our bodies physically, right? Emotionally, mentally, take on this burden and this weight. And for who? They're not even noticing, right? And some people are keeping score, etc. But it's not registering the way that we think it is or the way that we want it to. And so that was my moment where I was like, girl, if you don't sit down, if you don't have a
Girl.
seat and enjoy the weekend, sleep in the middle of the bed, just, eat in the bed and just be relaxed and just have fun and try not to be independent.
Whew, so this next episode got real deep, real personal, and we loved it. It was a great episode for us to just open up and share with the listeners how we came to the understanding of God, men, and power. So this opened up some deep conversations about fatherhood. It opened up some deep conversations on what we understand about men and how we came to that understanding. So let's listen in here. Episode 5, Loving God, side eyeing men.
So I'd love for us to share, like, what were our beliefs about men, about leadership, about who God is and how he's supposed to show up for us in different spaces. And again, this came up for me as I was just thinking about moments in time and just kind of my teaching that happened through experiences. And I specifically go to fatherhood. And it was really difficult for me to transition to God being a father when my father was completely absent.
Wow.
He was inconsistent. Even as an adult, I recall my mom sharing a conversation that she had with him, even after I cut ties with him, and he wasn't able to take accountability for not being there. He said it was my responsibility as a child to reach out to him. I said, wow.
Okay. That's hard.
Yes.
That is
It was
hard.
so difficult. And my mother was so ride or die for he's since passed, right? But my mother was so ride or die for him and just so, well, you gotta forgive him. And she's right? But it was difficult for me that I was supposed to be responsible for his maturation as a father and his obligation to me, right? I should have reached out to him when I was younger and as an adult, right? He that lack of responsibility, it hurt. And it molded younger and then into adulthood. When I heard this story, my understanding of men, of God, and again of fatherhood. So it was a really difficult transition for me to understand that a father is supposed to be there for you, and that God, my heavenly Father, has always been there. He's always been consistent. But we live in the world, we live in the flesh. So because I couldn't see him, it was really hard for me to get that understanding. And I didn't have the foundational teaching growing up, right? We weren't really present in the church like that. So as an adult, y'all, that's when it really hit me, like, oh, God is a good father. Like, he models fatherhood for us and what a man is supposed to be, that comfort, that protection, the wisdom that I can get from them, being a strong tower, being patient and merciful and understanding, keeping no records of wrong. What? Meaning I can go to him and he won't bring up the past. I need not have any guilt or shame with him. He is our peace. All of these things that fathers are supposed to represent, I have in God, and I had in him all along. So, when I think about growing up, I had Bible verses I memorized. I was a part of Awana. I went every Wednesday. I got my little treats. I went to Sunday school, but I didn't start building that intimate, close relationship with him until I was an adult. And that misunderstanding really trickled into my marriage. I had huge expectations of my husband, what he should look like as a man, and especially what he should look like as a father to our children, because I had my absent father. So anything that didn't meet my expectations, y'all, ooh, baby, it tore the scab off. Because it wasn't a healed wound. It was literally a scab. So if you rub that thing even lightly against your clothes, right, it opens up. So it ripped the scar off, and it was a fresh wound. And I was able to see I was not fully healed from my understanding of manhood, of fatherhood, of who God is. And so I'm still on that journey. I'm not going to lie to y'all listeners. I'm still on that journey.
Yes.
But I check myself whenever I put that high expectation on my husband. And he may not always see it, but it's internal work that's happening within me.
Wow. That is good and something to just sit with and unpack, right? That's a lot to unpack, and you are absolutely not alone with that.
Dr. Blair, I think you just gave me a little case of PTSD because I used to get them scabs all the time, girl.
Mm.
Them things hurt. Okay, I have to tell y'all about when I earned the nickname Evil Knievel with my family. But that's another story for another day.
Tune in.
Lady B, you didn't know that? Girl, if my family listening right now, they are rolling. They are
Love it.
hollering. Evil Knievel.
All right, all right. This next clip, we're staying with the men because this was a powerful, powerful episode as far as God, men, power, that dynamic, having an understanding of his story. So we're going to stick with episode 6 here. And then this is directly from the guys, them talking about how what they saw didn't translate to reality and how they didn't necessarily get the information on how to be a husband. It was so powerful hearing from them. So let's just pause and listen to the men.
I think statistically, 75% of Black children are born into single parent households, right? So the concept of marriage and what that looks like is centered in two things, right? Or one or two things or both, centered in church or religion, right? Or it's centered in your grandparents or somebody else from another generation that you saw, because usually we didn't have those examples coming along. So first off, to take the step into marriage is a brave step, right? Because for most of us, we're going into the unknown. But then the other part of that is really unlearning all of the stuff that we saw, because one thing about our grandparents or the older generation was, we saw the success, but we didn't see the struggle. And I think that's very important to highlight because, you know, when they couldn't pay a bill, they weren't talking about that in front of us or to us. When they were having marital issues, that wasn't discussed with us and how they navigated that. But what you saw, what you heard was we've been together for X amount of years and we stayed together through the good times and the bad times. So for at least for me, um, I had to really just first off, as far as religion is concerned, the Bible is concerned, I really had to look at that as guardrails, right? And to make sure that I stayed within the bounds of that, but not to take it so literal to the point to where I wasn't able to have full autonomy on who I wanted to be as a man in my marriage. The other thing was I had to understand that the older generation, those examples that I had in front of me, that they're their own examples and that I'm mine. They can't live my life or my marriage for me, and I couldn't do it for them. So every step that I took going forward was just going to be one of newness and a learning experience for myself and for Daquita. And then from there, it just took patience and understanding that there are going to be times where I'm going to fail, and then there's going to be times to where I'm going to do great, but not to be too high or too low, but to kind of stay in the middle ground.
Ephesians 5:25 is like love your wife as Christ loved the church. So I when I met Blair, I was heavy in church. I was racing, running, and chasing for God. Working on my personal relationship, and I was in church two days a week at my church, a day or two a week with a buddy of mine at his church, and in the gym and the bowling alley. That was sort of like that was my life. That was all I did outside of work, right?
Oh, man.
And so, I was on the singles ministry. I was on in a couple of other ministries, and so in church as a kid, 10 Commandments, right? How to live life, how to grow, what lanes to stay in. You start to get older and you get into the singles ministry and you learn how to attract the woman, right? You learn how to get the woman, how to treat the woman.
Wow, what a great
And none of
feeling.
and none of the words that I received growing up did they ever actually tell me how to be a husband. I didn't. So it was like I heard Ephesians and First Corinthians and First Timothy 5 and 8, and I got I got bits and pieces, but I didn't get instructions. I didn't get direction. I didn't get I know to love my wife like Jesus loves the church. I know, be a bodyguard, treat my wife with, get my wife the white glove treatment. But I didn't learn Like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Like in layman's terms, what does that look like in 2026 or in 2013 when we married? What does that look like?
That's
So
strong.
honestly, I mean, and I'm learning and growing day to day. I'm learning and growing and figuring this thing as we go.
Amen. Amen. I think she carried the assumption that leadership was strength without weakness. That as the man, I had to be steady, certain, and above struggle. And if I wasn't, I shouldn't hide it. You know, but over 13 years, I've learned that hiding doesn't protect the marriage. It quietly erodes trust, right? So for me, over that time, I used to think that leadership meant having the answers. Now I understand it means taking responsibility, especially when trust has been strained. And I think early on that was something that we really went through was the trust and faithfulness, who wants to be saved or whole, and all these other type of characteristics when it was very difficult to move forward and deal with the assumptions that my wife already had in her mind, knowing that I wanted to start fresh. So when I heard Antoine bringing up the scriptures, when Paul says Ephesians 5, husbands love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that word gave himself up, that's surrender, that's sacrifice, that's exposure. And I feel like Christian leadership wasn't control. You know, it was a covenant loyalty, and I've been growing into that. That's my question one.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that real quick. There's a mantra, right, that says if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you, right? So, not and when you look at what Christ did for the church, and you compare it to who we are as men in marriages, um, really the expectation is going to be of service, right? You obtain the leadership by being of service, being of use. And that's not necessarily always being able to fix something, right? Especially in this day and time, you can always hire somebody to fix something. You can always find somebody to do something for you. But being of service is sometimes being that comfort, being that listening ear, being that voice of advice when it's needed, or just being the unmovable object in the face of conflict, right? In or out the house. But either way, when you look to be of service, to be of those things, not for any reason other than it is just who I am and who I'm designed as a man to be, you then start to take on that leadership role and you become a better leader. And that's inside and outside the house. You also become a better husband. You also become a better father and other things. And you become just a better man in general. But again, it all starts with how can I be useful today? What can I do to help myself, to help my family, to help my wife, to help the world today? And I think that if you go forward with that mentality and that objectivity, you'll fare out much better.
Amen.
As you listen to this next clip, pay attention to what comes up for you. Not what you agree with, but what makes you pause. Let's take a listen to episode 7, Raised to be Strong, Starving to be Soft.
So each week, we have been discussing the things that we no longer can unsee. And as Dr. Blair said, this week is on softness. And I'm telling you, I'm so excited to get into it and just discuss it, unpack it a little bit more. Dr. Blair's face is just like,
I'm squirming in my seat. I'm uncomfortable, but I know we need to talk about it, so I'm here.
I have to talk about it. And, the question that we're posing, or what the thing that we can no longer see is that many of us did not reject softness because we were strong. We rejected it because it wasn't safe. So a lot of us did not wake up one day and decide, I don't want to be soft. We learned that softness caused too much. We learned that being open would get us hurt, being vulnerable. It sometimes it was used against us. Being tender also could make us easy targets. So we had to adjust, right? We had to become sharp or efficient and unbothered. And not because we're cold. You know, we have been, some of us are labeled as cold women or aggressive, but it's because it kept us protected. Sometimes, you know, and Dr. Blair mentioned this already, but softness sometimes is confused with being passive, or guardedness can be mistaken for uptight, snooty, bougie, all those
I am a
things.
little bougie. I am a little bougie.
A little bougie, right?
I might be a little bougetto because I got some stuff
Love it. I definitely think y'all
going
are
on.
bougie.
Yeah.
But somewhere along the way, we were told that soft women would get walked over, right? So we decided we would never be that woman, right? Many of us have said, I'm not going to be that woman. You're not about to walk all over me and make decisions for me. So we thought that being mature meant not reacting or not needing someone, maybe not crying, not asking for help. And that's what we started to identify or call emotional shutdown discipline. We started calling distance known as peace. We started referring to it as peace. And then we started calling isolation strength. So I want to break it down a little bit. And when we talk about that being guarded, it does work when you guard your heart. When you don't open up, nobody can hurt you, right? So when you don't expect much, you can't be disappointed. And when you carry it yourself, nobody can drop it, right? You're able to depend on yourself. It works. But what worked to protect us in one season might be blocking in another season. So when we think about, I'm trying to think about some of the women, right, just out here in the culture that are doing that are great examples of showing softness for us, right? Because I'm struggling, and that's something we were just talking about prior to this episode. We're like, okay, every time on TV and social media, we are told, be the strong one, be the strong woman, be the strong Black woman. And we're just trying to identify, like, on even TV shows, like who is it that has been identified as soft and not as labeled as a crazy person.
By this point, the conversation had shifted. It wasn't just about what we had experienced. It was becoming about what we needed to unlearn. Let's listen in as we are talking more about bitterness and resentment. All right, episode 8, faithful, obedient, and low-key bitter.
For our topic in this episode, we're discussing obedience without resentment.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm.
So this episode is for you if you find yourself saying yes to things, but you feel irritated afterward. You obey God, but secretly wish the assignment was different. You struggle when obedience feels inconvenient or unseen. Or if you feel the tension between your calling and your capacity. But also if you've been faithful, but you feel overlooked. That's who this episode is for. So without further ado, hey ladies.
Hey.
How you doing?
Doing.
Y'all, we love to start off these episodes by just kind of defining a clear truth that we can no longer ignore, we can no longer unsee. And as Dr. DQ said, right, is us looking into obedience and really having an understanding that obedience isn't heavy because God is harsh or mean or angry. It's heavy when our hearts are divided, when there's a lack of alignment with God, when his will and our will aren't doing what they're supposed to do. They're not willing. The willing ain't the way willing in that space, right? Being on one accord with God. So when there's that disconnect, then obedience feels really heavy and it's not the light work that it is supposed to be. So what do we mean by a divided heart? When we talk about obedience, we're talking about the fact that we sometimes will think of obedience right next to autonomy. Right. And when we think about autonomy, that's us wanting to do our own thing. So, of course, I'm leaning against obedience because let me be me. I'm grown. I have, God gave me free will. Like I'm out here in these streets doing what I do. Right. So there's a disconnect there. That's the divide. When we think about submission and then we compare that to self-erasure. Did I say that right? Praise God. Okay. Edit. Right. We feel like we are losing who we are when we submit to God. When we have that submissive relationship, we feel like we're no longer being authentic. Who are we? Am I aligning more? And let's be real. I pray every day, Lord, less of me, more of you. Because I want to see that actualized. I want to see that exemplified. But some people really struggle with that. They want to hold on to some of the things that feel good, but may not be good for their spirit, right? It's about calling versus comfort, or doing what's right versus wanting what's easy, right? We rather be comfortable in the things that we're doing versus sitting in that discomfort and, of course, being obedient. We also see just faithfulness and fairness. We see others We see others succeeding and having all these amazing things, and we sitting and looking at God like, Lord, I'm doing it. I'm being obedient. Why are these things not coming to me? Where's the prosperity? If it's in your will, the desires of my heart, I got these desires. But again, if we are divided, if we're not on one accord, right? So this is a piece that we want to search and we want to talk about today, right? Delaying gratification as opposed to the immediate desires of our heart versus what is God's will.
Listeners, 4 months in, and we are just getting started. We don't take it lightly that you listen, that you share, and that you have trusted us with your time and your process. This has just been an amazing 4 months. And because we know what this kind of work requires, trust me, it does require work, like honesty, reflection, the willingness to just sit with things that you may have avoided, okay? And if you've been on this journey with us, you are not the same woman. You are not the same person who pressed play on episode 1, and neither are we. We are all growing. We are learning, and we're being stretched in real time. And the best part of this is that we're doing it together.
So if there's been a moment, any moment that made you pause, reflect, or see something differently, even though you may not have wanted to, don't keep that to yourself. Send this episode to someone who's been navigating their own process. And if this podcast has been meaningful to you, take a moment to follow, rate, or leave a review. It helps this work reach more women who are ready for this kind of conversation.
All right, y'all, for real and not for fake. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening, for reflecting, for doing the work. And we really hope that we'll see you next time on the Yes Work Podcast.